So the Oscars went down, and Leonardo DiCaprio finally got the big one. I saw a really cute video. It was so. In case you don't know, when you get your Oscar, your name's not on it because that would kind of spoil the whole thing, right? If there was an Oscar floating around backstage that said Leonardo DiCaprio, it would get leaked somehow. So they engraved them after they give them to the actors. They go down to some lobby somewhere, and there's some, I'm sure they're incredibly talented because I watched them doing it, and I thought it would be like being really careful. It was like she was going to town on that thing. But he asks her, he's like, "Are you here? You do this every year?" She's like, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "I wouldn't know."
Yeah, it was cute.
And then, unfortunately, after a night of many drinks, apparently, he forgot his Oscar at the bar. They had to run out to his limo with it and be like, "You forgot this."
That's funny.
He forgot his Oscar?
He forgot his Oscar.
I'm sure they would have made him a new one, right?
I don't know. I don't think so. I know that Michael Jackson, what was the whole thing where he had purchased he owned someone's Oscar, I think. I think he had purchased one, and now it's missing from his estate. I was reading about that the other day, and apparently,
in God's name, would you buy someone else's Oscar?
It was a famous person's Oscar. I don't recall the story.
A famous person won an Oscar.
Well, there are some very non-famous
this isn't
people
Joe
who won
Sixpack's Oscar. This is a very elite Oscar.
Kyle's right, though. There's like short documentaries.
If you had Marlon Brando's Oscar that he sent that Indian woman to receive, that Oscar's worth a lot of money. But if you've got what was that really fat black girl who won an Oscar 4 years ago? Precious. Her Oscar ain't worth shit.
No.
I would not pay It's worth what its weight is in whatever it's made of. If it's worth $80 scrap metal, that's what it's worth. I wouldn't want Precious's Oscar. What is?
I think it'd be cool.
Do you think they gave her a poor quality one?
No, it's the same quality. It's just meaningless because it's hers.
But wouldn't it be neat to have a real Oscar in Taylor's?
Of course
background?
It would, I suppose. But I'd rather have Leo's Golden Globe than Precious's Oscar, though.
Absolutely. I don't want anything that those sweaty hands have just rubbed over and just.
Yeah.
No, can you imagine that moist handprint? Like when you have you're really sweaty and you put your hand down on one of those science desks where it's kind of black and plastic. I bet that's what it looks like on her trophies.
Is there a sex scene in it or something?
I don't know. I wouldn't watch that movie.
Yeah.
No, I'm not watching a sex scene with her in it.
Here's all I know. In Speech and Debate, one of the people does a scene from Precious, in their speech competition, and apparently it's pretty much R or X rated. And every time parents judge and see this for the first time, it's holy smokes. Because I don't know, if they're like me, they still think if their kid is 11, and so much as using a bad word is a big deal.
Well, I didn't watch any of the Oscars, and I'm glad I didn't. Reddit was furious with Chris Rock's performance, I guess.
What did he do?
Well, of course, it was the white Oscars, that was boycotted by Will Smith and his wife because.
Oh my God!
Oh my goodness! No Will Smith.
Yeah, and Spike Lee maybe, and a couple other people, but and Chris Rock really made fun of that the entire night, and then Sacha Baron Cohen came out as Ali G. He wasn't supposed to. He was supposed to come out as Sacha Baron Cohen. But instead, he came out as Ali G and started making some racist remark about Asian people, about those little yellow hardworking people or something like that. And he's like, "Oh no, I'm talking about the Minions."
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah. So apparently, his new film, and I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of it, but it's absolutely outrageous. And at one point in the scene, Donald Trump gets AIDS. That's part of Sacha Baron Cohen's new movie. It's being made by Sony, who, if you remember, last year had that huge debacle with Kim Jong-un and the fact that they made the movie about him, and there was the whole thing with North Korea and the hacking and everything, and that cost them God knows how much money. That Sony hack was very detrimental to Sony's bottom line. It's kind of incalculable, but it's damaged the brand. So here Sony feels like here we go, round two. There's nobody more litigious than Donald Trump. Donald Trump will sue your ass if he thinks he can win. And what was he just talking about out there was wanting to open up the libel laws. So when people defame you, they tell lies about you, you can go after them and as he says, win lots of money. And so here Sony goes, about to make a movie where Donald Trump gets AIDS. So we're gonna have to see how that plays out. I think that's pretty interesting. I'm kind of curious about Sacha's new movie. Apparently, it's just really.
That's not unsurprising for him. You
Raunchy.
remember Bruno? Bruno was horrific.
Borat
for the time was crazy.
For the time, I watched Borat just the other day. I mean, when they're nude, him and that fat man in that bed, and they are like getting in, they're like wrestling and fighting angrily, but they're doing it while transitioning basically from sexual position to sexual position. They like 69 and fight, and then it's like downward facing dog and fight, and it's like wheelbarrow and fight. Like they're just getting into sexual positions with, and he's got this gigantic, hairy, nasty bush, and his balls are everywhere. That's edgy for any time. I mean, that's border.
Yeah, and I guess they run through that whole hotel lobby, right, while they're naked chasing each other.
Yeah, that's that was pretty crazy. He got sued several times behind that movie. That was crazy for the time. I was a big fan of that when it came out. I was like 19 or 20, I think.
Yep, I remember. I went to go see that with my dad, and I thought it was going to be uncomfortable, but it was one of those like, oh, my dad's actually a pretty cool guy kind of moment where it was like,
oh, that's cool.
You know?
Yeah.
Because there's always like that fear, that first. I'm sure Woody's experienced this from the other side of like. Because when I was like, I guess Hope's age, if I was watching a really explicit movie with my parents, I would be sitting there like, oh my god, like this sex scene. I'll just pick a corner of the screen and just look, or I'll play with my phone. I don't want to even acknowledge that I'm in the room watching it. Like, what's the parent thinking in that
situation? Let me ask you: were your parents ever so unchill that they say something awkward, like when something happens? Because I remember one time I'm watching Pulp Fiction. And it's the part where Jules and the other guy, Sam Jackson and John Travolta are walking down the hallway. They're about to break up the breakfast and, do the whole opening scene thing. And they're talking about rubbing a woman's foot versus eating her pussy. And he starts talking about eating the pussy in the holiest of holes. And I just remember my mom being like, good Lord! Ah! And me just being like, can you just fucking go with it? I mean, we're about to watch somebody get raped in like half an hour. Like, it's not that edgy here. And what was the other one when it happened? And somebody was just super unchill about it.
Unchill as far as like,
oh, my grandmother
making a big scene, or that they didn't get it?
Both, actually. My mom just didn't get it when it came to Pulp Fiction, and she was just like disgusted by they were talking about eating pussy like that. But my grandmother, I watched Alien Resurrection with her, and I guess I was like 11 or 12 when that shit came out. And there's a scene in it where Sigourney Weaver has sex with an alien, and it's really heavily implied, but there's kind of this embrace between them, and you kind of get like a montage of just fuzzy stuff, and then an alien offspring is produced by this. And I just remember my grandma didn't get it. And she just didn't get it. And we're just leaving the theater in the car, and she's just going on and on about it. And I'm just sitting over there like red-faced, like I want to be like, she fucked the alien! She fucked the alien, Ninny! That's what happened. And finally she was like, did they have sex? And I just remember my papa going, yes! Yes! And me, and like both of us at the same time. And then just everybody being red-faced the whole way home, because now we're all like aware of the fact that Sigourney Weaver had some sort of weird lesbian sex with a creature and produced this humanoid alien ghoul thing.
I may have mentioned this before, but it was years ago when my parents were still together. I was in like early high school, and my parents and me and my younger brother, we were out to eat, and my younger brother and my dad made some joke together making fun of my mom, as was oft to occur. And my dad kind of just held up his like fist for a fist bump with my brother, just kind of being like, aha, we showed that dumb lady who is your mom and my wife. And he held his fist up, and my brother just didn't acknowledge it or anything. Didn't want to, give him the fist bump, kind of give him the rolling eyes of a kid who would want to be associated with his parent. And my mom was just looking at my brother like, why are you being so rude? Put up your hand and fist your father. Fist your father? Why are you laughing, Taylor? You think it's okay for your brother not to fist your father right now in this restaurant after you're laughing about this joke? It was so uncomfortable. But I love it when...
Your mom was kind of right, though. That's pretty lame of your brother.
Well, yeah. It's just not that much to ask. Throw people high fives, throw them the fist bump.
Yeah.
It's a real shit move to leave people hanging.
There's never been a time in my daughter's life when I couldn't get a fist pound out of her. And, God, will people misconstrue even that? a bump, and and then Colin right now, like we do a whole
There's
handshake.
never been a time in my daughter's life where I couldn't get a good fist pound with her.
And Colin, we have a whole handshake. Back, forth, up, down, pound. It's a thing.